Thank you, Clywyd. Concerning the general principles of this bill, I think it is fair to say that this government has completely failed to communicate what problem it is trying to solve and why it is implementing this legislation. The Welsh Government is stating that it wants to put social partnership on statutory footing to improve public procurement processes, but it has not made any credible assessment of existing social partnership practices in Wales. Thus, we do not know the extent to which collaboration already exists, how this statutory legislation will affect the creation of social partnerships that grow organically from a mutual need, and therefore this government is creating legislation to provide a solution to an unknown problem. In preparing for this debate, I spoke with outside bodies who will be affected by this bill, and they are at a complete loss as to why this is needed. They do not understand how it will benefit the workplace, since the Future Generations Bill already places considerable responsibility on public bodies to incorporate health and well-being goals into their planning. They already have procurement strategies that aim to purchase locally where possible, and they already work effectively with trade unions. They also believe that this bill will either end up having no real value or positive outcome and become another red tape tick box exercise in duplication, or it will have the potential to considerably disrupt already well-established procurement practices by placing onerous reporting duties on small independent suppliers who, perversely, the Welsh Government are aiming to help. I fully understand that this government is focused on helping local businesses access government procurement contracts to help create jobs locally, but procurement is just not that simple. It is increasingly unlikely that local businesses will be able to supply the range and quantity of items that all these public bodies need. Moreover, by placing a target on the quantity of goods and services procured locally, this government is inadvertently creating the conditions for middlemen in the procurement chain who will be based in Wales but source goods from outside Wales, which will of course lead to increased costs for public bodies. It is stated in the report that in implementing the Act, the Welsh Government hoped to work with the public sector to build capacity and capability at a time when budgets are likely to be squeezed, which is, in my mind, quite contradictory, because building capacity and capability takes investment. If you're going to increase the capacity of public bodies to procure locally, then it has to consider that costs will become higher because smaller local businesses will have higher running costs. More broadly, this bill has several serious flaws. The statutory requirement for all public bodies to reach a consensus with trade unions on setting their well-being objectives is very likely to have problematic consequences. If a trade union has, for instance, unaffordable well-being targets, the public body will be obliged to negotiate proposals they will not be able to afford to implement and thus fail to find consensus and fail to meet its statutory obligations. There is no formal mechanism whatsoever in this bill to help public bodies circumvent this issue, which will undoubtedly cause serious problems, because whether or not consensus has been discharged, it is purely subjective. Furthermore, the bill has no way of enforcing these legal obligations, quantifying the success or failure of this legislation, and it has no way of measuring what impact this legislation will have. Because, like I have previously stated, this government has not even done the basics in conducting any quantifiable assessment of current social partnership practices in Wales. Turning to the Social Partnership Council, there are several inconsistent intentions here. The bill hinges on the council enabling a voice for everyone, but if this was a true social partnership, it would be ensuring that every voice, no matter how small, is heard and has a valid seat at the table, which, as the Deputy Minister has recognised, is unachievable. This bill, therefore, will likely favour the largest groups involved, who will, in turn, have the potential to become just another echo chamber for what the Welsh Government wants to hear. This government needs to understand that businesses fundamentally do not organise themselves in the same way as trade unions or governments, and creating this social partnership legislation will place a degree of inflexibility on them, which will result in them not being agile enough to respond to fast-moving economic situations. Moreover, it is incorrect to think that businesses need government to bring them together in social partnership. Companies will naturally look for and create social partnerships if it helps their business and if market conditions favour it. Finally, I believe that this government is creating this bill with the misguided notion that it will provide some benefit to Wales, whilst completely ignoring the evidence and pleas of what is needed. Businesses right across Wales are reporting that they are limited by the skills of employees, and this is the biggest barrier to their growth. Businesses I have spoken with generally want to drive up rates of pay for their staff, They want to support them and improve working conditions because it is in their interests to do so. But they're limited by their ability, not because they can't access public procurement contracts, but because they cannot access a wide enough skill set. This legislation...
You'll need to bring your comments to a close now.
Thank you, Llywydd. On these grounds, I therefore encourage members not to support the general principles of this bill.
Thank you.